AI can write a follow-up email for a sales call in seconds. The harder question is whether or not that email can actually advance the deal. The missing piece is the company knowledge layer. Think of it as a living context for your entire company. And here's what that looks like with a real example in B2B sales. Imagine I tell my AI assistant to write a follow-up email after an initial discovery call. That's enough to get a generic email. For an enterprise prospect, it would usually sound something like this, with the subject line saying, "Great speaking with you today. Body, thank you for the time. I enjoyed learning about your team. Please let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to next steps." It's clean, it's polite, but it could have been sent to anyone from anyone. Now, give the same model the call transcript, the account and stakeholders, the customer's priorities, their objections, the offer, and the agreed upon next step, as well as your company's voice. Now, the follow-up email can be much more specific. Subject, enterprise pilot for 12 account rollup. Body, thanks for mapping the steering committee's 3 concerns about security, adoption, and proving value before Q4. By Thursday, I'll send you a 12 account pilot with the data access path, the stakeholder map, and the measure of time saved per account. If that earns your approval, we'll go ahead and schedule the Q4 rollout review. You see, the AI model, it stayed the same. The business context is what changed. And that's the power of the company knowledge layer, capturing what your business already knows and organizing what stays useful. That way it can supply the right context for the task. Most companies already have useful business context, but it's spread across strategy documents, customer files, and operating systems. It's in conversations or experienced employees' heads. And the first job is finding that signal. Some of the best context never begins as a document. It shows up in prospect calls, customer conversations, leadership, meetings, email, Slack, CRM notes, and project reviews. That's why recording and transcribing useful conversations is such valuable data. So much valuable information in a business is just in conversations. And I would also highly recommend owning your knowledge layer and not just blindly keeping it inside of another AI platform. So right about now, you're probably thinking, that's great, well, how do I start? And there are lots of ways. Number one, you could organize your offer, your customer, your product, service, and any other processes and SOP document already have. You could also capture or start capturing important conversations. You could interview your team, your founder, leadership, any experienced employees, and document how to actually make decisions. Basically, I recommend the source that already contains the cleanest signal. Then comes the next problem. Where should that knowledge live? At Linux, we try to keep it simple, and we use a shared drive structure as the company knowledge layer. The most practical areas for everyday AI work are things like growth of the business, your clients, your products, your operations, and your team. Now, your full company structure probably also includes things like corporate, finance, maybe even your website, and every company will label things differently, but the principle is the same. Your company needs to get customers and, I like to say, make customers happy. But basically, we need to give people and AI a clear pace to find the current source of truth. Raw data is useful, but rarely is this the final layer. You see, a prospect call, that initial bit of data, can become customer language or objection handling. A leadership meeting can become a decision in the business, have an owner or operating rules, and a project review can become a better process or example. The goal is to turn regular context into useful context that the business can reuse. Now, a useful context will contain 3 things: the current version, the named owner, a review date, and how it's going to be updated. Without these, you're going to have a neat folder, which is going to contain a lot of stale information. And the folder structure should help inform what the AI does. It doesn't automatically give an AI full system access. For a real workflow, you still need to select the folder you want it to work in, connect an approved retrieval system, and permissions should follow the same rules as a regular workflow. Give it the information it needs and no more. Which raises the next practical question. How much context should one task receive? Now, the full company library is usually too broad for one task, And sometimes things live across multiple folders. We want to build a workflow packet instead. A workflow packet is just the smallest useful collection of business context needed to complete one task. So let's say there's a workflow you use all the time. You're going to want to make sure that in the workflow, it contains a quick packet or some kind of documentation that just explains where to find the necessary sources to perform its task. Literally just a list of different files, folders, and locations. Now for the follow-up email, the packet is simple. We want things like the call transcript, the account details, the customer's priorities, objections, the offer. We also want the agreed upon next step and the voice of the company. And realistically, depending on how you organize your CRM or knowledge layer, this is probably just in a few different locations or markdown files. And we use this same approach to create videos on this channel. The context includes the YouTube strategy, the intended audience, the voice profile, production playbook, research, and slide standards. Now, those sources define how the video should sound and what the video should accomplish. For this video, we selected the relevant context, we built the outline, we wrote the script, mapped the slides, and prepared the recording deck, all from that context. You're looking at the output of the knowledge layer while I'm explaining the knowledge layer. Now, your company map tells the AI where the reliable sources live. Your workflow packet selects which context matters for this job or workflow. I know this seems very daunting initially, and you're probably feeling or thinking, how do I document this entire business? And the answer is start small. Choose one reoccurring workflow and an outcome that a person can easily review. This could be a sales follow-up, a proposal, a meeting brief, a weekly report, or an onboarding plan. Just something specific enough to test. Now we're going to want to also gather 3 useful inputs or examples for that workflow. We're going to want to write down the rules of the workflow, the constraints, and the approval points that actually affect the results. We're also going to run that test with a generic prompt and thin context first, then run it with the full workflow packet so we can compare the before and after. Next, we're going to just compare, right? Which one's more accurate? Which one's more specific? What kind of important information is still missing? And how many revisions would an experienced person actually need to make to get it up to par? Now, we also want to think about where does the human approval belong in that process? We want to use these answers to improve the source material, the documentation. That way the workflow becomes useful, and when it does, we can assign an owner, a review trigger, and we still want to keep a person responsible for the important outputs, as well as use the approved environments for any sensitive information you might have. Now, the advantage comes from building a business that can supply better context consistently. Start with one workflow, one packet, and one owner. I actually made a free 30-minute knowledge layer pilot checklist to help you choose your workflow, gather your inputs, and compare the result. Link down in the description below.